want to cut into our speakers' time too much. Okay, as you all know, this is a 2-hour meeting, so we're not going to break in between the meeting at all. If you need a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, just put yourself on mute, maybe put your video off so that we can't see you wandering around and distract the speaker, and then come back. In actual fact, you can probably keep your speakers off throughout. That'll be helpful because we pick up so much background noise. So just turn off your speakers unless you're actually talking. That would be helpful. When you're speaking, turn on your speaker and have a chat. Does everyone know how to put up your hand?
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. That'll do.
And I
That'll
think
do.
just, Jane, I think we're doing, it's till 12 o'clock. It's an hour-and-a-half meeting today.
Brilliant. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks, Perul. That's helpful. So it is until 12 o'clock. We'll aim to finish at 12. We've only got a couple of speakers, so those speakers will have time to do their presentations and for everyone to have a nice chat afterwards and ask the questions you want to ask. Let's let the speakers talk through their talk and then have the questions afterwards so that they can finish their presentations. And just make a note of anything you want to say. There is the chat box if you want to put something in the chat during the discussion, which we can then go back to after the presentation. To start with, we've got Ian. He's going to give us a bit of a funding update. And here he goes. I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, so thanks, Jane. There's not that many funds have been released over the past week. I'll just go through some highlights and I'll send the slides to people with more details. There's funding to support women's organisations during the COVID-19 pandemic. Grants up to £40,000 are available. Deadline for this is 5 PM on the 25th of March. And there's a website link on the slide for more information. Like I said, I can send you the slides afterwards. A new fund available in Ealing, Acton Gardens Community Chest. Committee supporting the local community, and they set aside a funding pot for the regeneration of South Acton. £50,000 has been made available for local groups to apply for, up to £5,000 per project. There's going to be 4 application rounds, first one in March, and again there's a link to our website where I've got more information, including the application form. Ealing's also got a crowdfunding program. And they've got an event coming up. You can find out more information on the link. I think the event is early March. Hear about the funds available for the projects and how to crowdfund as well, because there's sort of 50% crowdfunding opportunity. Cornerstone Fund funding is available for partnerships aiming to bring about systematic change to tackle structural inequalities and build stronger, more resilient communities. Stage 1 deadline is 22nd of March. National Lottery Heritage Fund has reopened. It's not only for capital costs, it's also for sort of work related to sort of storytelling as well, so might be relevant. Look there. Yeah, fund available for environmental projects, deadline 26th of March. I think that's one I've already covered, sorry. Yeah, funding for projects assisting disadvantaged young people, grants of between £200 and £2,000. Expressions of interest by 28th of February. Yeah, money saving expert funding available. Apply as soon as possible. Again, there's information on the website link. Leather Sellers Company. Yeah, the current window has opened. Again, there's a link for information. National Lottery have also just launched a round 2 of their Climate Action Fund. So focusing on supporting community-driven projects that address consumption, covering topics such as food waste, repair and reuse, retail and consumerism, Deadline is 8th of April. MOPAC funding is also available for domestic abuse and sexual violence. You need to submit your interest by 8th of March. Like I said, the more information in the slides, so I'll send the slides after. So that's just a little update. Back to you, Jane. Jane, are you doing?
Thank you. Thank you, Ian. It's because I was just distracted by the beach, really. Remember, everyone, Ian is an absolute source of all sorts of information around funding. Please contact him if you have any questions about funding. If you've got an idea or a project in mind and you don't know if there is a funding stream available that would suit your project, speak to Ian. His email address is really, really straightforward, as with everyone at EHCVS. It's ian@ehcvs.org.uk. And he runs sessions from time to time about funding. He'll give you one-to-one advice as well. So really worth thinking about what you want to do and then speaking to Ian. His guidance and help has been invaluable for loads of different people. I just want to give you a little bit of an update on the Digital Champions, which, you know, we only launched last week on the 17th. We now have 14 Digital Champions signed up, which is a fantastic number of people who are interested in volunteering to support local groups. So if you are a local group in Hounslow who would like some support, please contact me. We're in the very early days of this. So although your contact may come in, it's taking a bit of time to put people in place and connect people, because of course all the checks and balances have to be done before we put a digital champion with you. We provide them with a bit of training. We do some registration with them. So it's not an instant process, but I would really, really encourage you to contact me. Again, my email address is as straightforward as everyone else at EHCVS, jane@ehcvs.org.uk. Welcome to contact me if you're having concerns around your digital capacity as a group in Hounslow. Our first guest speaker is Sarah from the Northwest London collaboration of CCGs. She's the Engagement and Equalities Manager, and she's going to talk about the boosting vaccine uptake in the BAME communities. Before we hand over to Sarah, can I remind you, as Noika has, please remember to put your name, your organization, and your email in the chat box as well. Sarah, over to you.
Sorry, I couldn't work out how to unmute myself. Let me just, so can everybody see my slides? Yeah? Okay, I'll try and make them full screen. Just bear with me because we don't use Zoom very much in my workplace, so I'm actually really out of practice on Zoom. Can you all see that? Yeah. Awesome, thank you. So yeah, I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of what the NHS and the council are doing to try and boost vaccine uptake amongst our Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities. Apologies in advance, my laptop is quite old and sometimes the fan comes on, so it makes a kind of a whirring noise. So please let me know if that's making it difficult to hear and I can get closer. Right, so first of all, who am I? So I work as an Engagement and Equalities Manager for Hounslow and Ealing CCG. Technically speaking, I work for the Northwest London collaboration of 8 CCGs, which is coming together as one big CCG on the 1st of April. I was working just in Hounslow. I started in 2018, and then from January of this year, I've started working across Ealing too. So I'm very new to Ealing. I'm just very gradually getting to know the council, the community groups, for example. So first of all, why is it important to boost the COVID vaccine uptake amongst our Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities? I'm sure everybody on this call has heard about the Public Health England report that came out last year that showed that the risk of dying from COVID-19 was higher amongst those from Black, Asian and minority ethnic groups than it was for those from white ethnic groups. And those findings seemed to mirror existing health inequalities and showed that COVID-19 was impacting on those communities disproportionately. So that's the kind of background that I think we're all aware of working in health and community and wellness. So I was going to move on and just say quickly, what did someone want to come in? Oh, maybe not. I'm happy to take questions at any time, but I've left a bit at the end as well for it. So what are we hearing at the moment from our communities about the COVID vaccine programme? Healthwatch Hillingdon did a survey for all of North West London and collected almost 5,500 responses asking questions about the vaccination programme. And very happily, I would say, they found that around 83% of people said that they would take the vaccine, they would consider taking the vaccine if it was offered to them. So that was quite an optimistic response. However, when we broke the data down and we did some comparisons looking at ethnicity, we found that of those saying no, they would not consider being vaccinated at that time, the highest was almost 32% amongst our Black communities across North West London saying that they would not consider being vaccinated. And over 28% of our Black communities also said they were not sure. And that was the highest of all the ethnic groups that were broken down. In Hounslow, we received just over 900 responses to the survey. And again, very happily, almost 82% of people said they would consider being vaccinated. But when we did the breakdown again, it showed a similar pattern. So 30% of our Black communities in Hounslow who were surveyed at that time said they would not consider being vaccinated, and 35% of them said they were unsure. And again, that was the highest of the no and the unsure across all the ethnicity groups that were broken down and surveyed. I won't go into this in any detail, but we also had some qualitative results where people were saying they were in favour of the vaccine, for example, because they wanted to return to a, quote, normal life. And they also wanted to help NHS services. Saying that they were against the vaccine, some people said they felt they had a lower risk of contracting the virus. And for example, some people said their religious beliefs were not compatible with taking the vaccine. And we all know, I'm sure we've seen the news stories flash up, the concern about so-called hesitancy amongst our BAME communities and what that means for how the COVID-19 pandemic can be brought under control. So I'll just give an overview of what we're currently hearing about the vaccination programme, and then I'll move on to what we're doing locally to increase uptake. So nationally, the research seems to be telling us that there are 5 main areas of concern. So people are worried about side effects, ingredients, the clinical trial process, the speed of the development, and questions about how it might affect their fertility. And these concerns seem to vary in intensity across our different communities. This is nationwide research. In London, happily, in the hesitancy, so people saying they're not sure about having the vaccine, seems to be going down. But there's still some pockets of concern, particularly amongst younger Londoners under 25s and those from our Black, Bangladeshi and Pakistani communities. And also some people from certain religions are still feeling that the vaccine is not compatible with their religious beliefs. In Hounslow, it's difficult to get an accurate picture because the data comes in from different sources, it goes into different programmes, and sometimes there's a delay in processing it. But it looks as though uptake is also lower amongst our Black African, Black Caribbean, Pakistani and Bangladeshi communities in Hounslow. Although it's a picture that changes from day to day because the programme is moving so fast. So what are we doing to try and boost uptake? So when I say we, I'm talking about the NHS, specifically the CCG, the Clinical Commissioning Group, and Hounslow Council, mostly. We're using the national campaign materials, so lots and lots of posters and leaflets and social media graphics. And they have what's called different calls to action. I mean, you'll all have seen them. It relates to the different points we are in the programme. And the downside of that is the message can change so fast. We get feedback that it can be quite confusing for people to know what they're meant to be doing at a particular time. But you might have seen resources like this, particularly if you or your family or friends or community members or colleagues who've been vaccinated, you probably picked up your I've had my vaccine sticker. We're also using the Public Health England resources, and these are great. These cover things like increasing confidence in the vaccine, explaining the process of the vaccine being developed, and we've got videos from doctors as well, which are great. And we also use the PHE, Public Health England, that stands for vaccination fact cards, to try and increase awareness of about what vaccines do. And finally, the messages about how effective and safe the vaccines are. We're using those locally on our communications channels, social media, magazines, that kind of thing, websites. So the North West London collaboration of CCGs has a dedicated website, and on that website there's a page for the program, the vaccination program. And I'm happy to share these slides so you'll have access to this link if you don't already. On this website we have FAQs, frequently asked questions, we have leaflets, we have videos, and lots of material in translation as well. Locally in Hounslow, we're creating our own material too to complement that. So for example, a local care home nurse called Regina said it was okay to film her as she was waiting and as she was getting her vaccine. So that video is up on YouTube, and we shared that with lots of people, and she was very happy to share her message. We've also done a video at a vaccination hub to explain the process. So going around and meeting the different staff members and showing what they did. Those are all on YouTube as well. We've got some photos of local GPs, either receiving or promoting the vaccine, and you might see some of these when Hounslow Matters comes out in March. Excuse me. Hounslow councillors have done some videos as well. I believe they're on to video number 2 now. They've done videos throughout COVID pandemic to try and help the message. And locally, we're also developing our own social media campaign, which will feature local doctors. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And finally, when you go to get your vaccine, you should now be given a bumper sticker for your car, or a sticker for your window, or something like that, that just hopefully will make people feel proud of having the vaccine, and also spread the message that it's something to be happy about, be proud about, and make it hopefully more acceptable amongst our communities to be vaccinated. I'm moving into kind of the focus group engagement side of things, and then I'm going to close just by asking for your thoughts on what we're missing and what we could be doing differently. So we run a Black Men's Focus Group. We've just had our second session. This didn't actually start because of COVID, but we used the second session to talk to the attendees about the vaccine. And we found out from them that barriers to getting the vaccine included a lack of good information, fears of safety and misinformation, and feeling like they were being forced as well. So we know we need to be very careful with the messages that we're putting out about the vaccine. But they felt what might help is if there was any possibility they could have a conversation with their GP, hearing from people like them that had had the vaccine, and sadly knowing someone who had died from COVID increased the likelihood that they would think, actually, I do want to have my vaccine. So much more is planned. We're hoping, for example, to do a Polish language webinar. We're planning a question and answer session for our Black African and Black Caribbean communities. We're thinking we might want to do some work with Bangladeshi businesses to try and reach our Bangladeshi communities. There's going to be a briefing for the whole borough, we hope, the whole borough of Hounslow. Hounslow Council are developing their COVID community champions as well, which are ambassadors within the community who talk about the vaccination programme. And we're planning some events with faith leaders and also a women's health event too. Finally, we know that there are some gaps in our programme and what we're doing. We know that the information changes so fast that it can be quite hard for our messages out to the community to keep up with it, and that can cause people confusion. We also need to understand more about some of our groups. So, for example, we don't know very much about our Bangladeshi residents. We need to learn more, and we need to learn more about what our younger people are thinking as well. Digital deprivation is a particular challenge because we can't go out there at the moment and talk to people if someone doesn't have access to the internet or is, on a pay-as-you-go phone and is just struggling to access our messages. We need to start thinking creatively about how we can reach them. So that's the end of my presentation, but what I really would like to hear is what you thought. Is there anything you've seen that you really like? Anything you think we should be doing more of? And also, we, the council and the NHS, are conscious that we're not always the right people to lead events. Who should we be working with? Do you want to help us? Perhaps we could come to your group and host and do a talk, or bring a GP to your community meeting to talk about the vaccine. And we'd also really love to hear from anyone who has had their vaccine from any community, but I mean, the focus of today is the Black, Asian, minority ethnic communities. But we want to gather stories of people who have had their vaccine as well. And I've put my email address in the chat so that people can contact me. So I hope I have stuck to time. And then maybe some questions. Let me just stop sharing.
Thank you, Sarah. That was really, really useful. We've already got quite a few people wanting to ask questions. And the first one with his hand up was Omar. Omar, would you like to ask your question?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Omar Mohammed from Acacia Community Center. And actually, it's not sort of a question. I have done with, I don't know if you know, Sarah, I've worked with Councillor Hanif, and we have done a video regarding the Somali community taking the vaccine because of the, actually, I don't know if you have done the research, actually the Somali community is the lowest in taking the vaccine. At the moment, there is a lot of fake news out there. So me and Councillor Hanif, what we did is we made a video and we put it out there. It's been circulating around, Guled is aware of it, it's been circulating around the Somali community a lot. And the other thing we suggested was, actually, he has written already to you. I've written a program, I don't know if he has sent it to you or not, regarding how we can do leaflets, translate them, and then target specifically where this misinformation is. And there is none other than, you know, we know the area, we know where the Somali communities are, and we know where the, you know, the misinformation is coming from. So we're talking about people who are vulnerable here, and at the same time, they have been given an information that if they take the vaccine, they will have a side effects and they will straight away die. So, and I've taken my vaccine on Sunday, and I was telling people that I've already taken it and I'm still here. But most of them, it's like, some of them told me, you know, it's some people don't get the reaction, some get. So if you're lucky one, don't lie to people. So that is actually what some of the people have already told me. So I will ask you to contact Hanif, because he's into the Somali communities. He knows, he's aware of the situation with them taking the vaccine.
That's really helpful.
Yeah. So
thank you. And if you wanted to share your story or experience, and it doesn't have to be for public consumption, it can just be as a resident feeding back, you're welcome to email me. But thank you, I'll get in touch. I imagine Councillor Hanif might have contacted the council communications team, but I'll check in and see whether we can promote the video wider. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Omar. That's really encouraging to hear, and a good story for our local group as well. Nikita has asked a question on the chat. She's asked, Sarah, thanks so much. Is there any difference in uptake related to gender that you've picked up on?
So there is. I don't have the figures in front of me right now, but we can share a breakdown from North West London from the Health Watch Hillingdon survey. So I can't remember, but I know, I think women were higher saying that they would and men were lower, but I don't want to misrepresent, so I'll share that. I don't think it was the most pronounced difference, but what we can do is share with the group the summary that we had from Health Watch Hillingdon for North West London and for Hounslow. So yeah, I'm happy to share that.
Anything else, Nikita?
No, thank you, Sarah. It's really interesting.
Okay. Any other questions? Hi, Lisa.
Hi, just not a question, but I was talking to a friend last week, and there is a bit of fear amongst the Rasta community because they think that the vaccine is made up of animal based. So because they're vegan, they that's for the religious reasons, and I just wanted to make you aware of that fact.
That's really interesting, and I don't know that we had considered that necessarily. I mean, we have been trying to engage with our residents from the Hindu population communities who, yeah, when we've heard that there are concerns, and amongst the Muslim communities where we've heard they're concerned about animal products too, but I don't think we had considered the Rasta community. Yeah. So that's really interesting. Thank you, Lisa. I'll feed that back. And it may be that you want to, we'll promote our Black Caribbean and community session as widely as possible. And if you could promote it out as well, that might be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One last chance for questions from anyone, comments. The Sarah's slides will be shared after this meeting. And if you want to have any more comments or anything, please share them.
I want to ask one question. Why is
sorry.
If I
Yusuf, hi.
Yes, please. Why is this misinformation is also coming from the government itself? The letters of which they're saying this job, when it was asked what is the effectiveness and the safety of this thing, that nowadays they're saying is to keep off people from the waiting list. That's the reason for, you know, feedback. And before we know what they were saying, again, why is this? Because of this research is actually saying what it is there on the ground. Why is this thing linked? And also this research jump one part. There also, this thing is linked to infertility, it's linked to travel, it's linked to license, it's linked to health certificate, or is it for protecting people? What is the message? This message, because the government itself is giving mixed information, that's why people are confused, and then all the institutions are closed. If they say, if some people, because the mosque, I know the mosque people who are taking care of the mosque, they took the job and they cannot open the facility. So what is this job for?
Yeah, I can hear the frustration there, Yusuf. So I know that the government messaging does change very frequently. Things like the vaccination passports that were being in the news, they're not something that the local NHS or council have any involvement in. We know that there's concern about them, and the issues around fertility, the information being given out about that has changed too, but that's changed following a lot of scientists taking a look at the data and coming to the conclusion that the risk of having COVID is greater to the pregnant woman. So it's important I'm clear that I'm not a GP or nurse, so I may not be able to answer your questions fully. But yeah, we hear a lot from our patient resident reps as well, that they feel that the messages coming from the government are confusing. The best that we can do is try and be consistent with what we share. And also, you know, if something changes, just be honest that it's changed and try and be really clear with our residents about what the current situation is. As far as I'm aware, the science coming out shows that the vaccine the vaccinations, the multiple different types, seem to be reducing transmission. But again, that's above my level of knowledge because I'm not a scientist. But I hear your frustration, and I'm imagining it's a lot of people's frustration too, that the messages are so confusing. But I would just encourage people to try to stick to sources that they trust and feel safe with. And it could be the NHS, it could be the council, it could be a faith leader, it could be a community leader. And try to look at lots of different sources and stack them up next to each other and make a decision. But it can be hard at the moment to see the wood for the trees. Yeah, I sympathise.
Thank you, Sarah.
Just to add to your comment, is we are going to the risk of now, if the vaccination is reducing the rate of infection, and we see that the last strain now, we're having local forum, you know, the other month, when the South African, you know, strain was beginning, and they say one was spotted in Hanwell and 3 were spotted in Han, you know, West Ealing. And last night we were having another similar meeting on the same forum, and now it is spreading already this week. Ealing is getting that virus to a higher rate. It's going up to Acton, it's going the surrounding. Now the risk we're having now is if then we are off of this lockdown now. And the way I'm telling you, the faith organization, the faith people who are faith leaders and their institutions, they took the government message first, and they took the job in order to retain that institutions for the community. They were the first to take this job. Then we are going to the third lockdown. If now we come out of this lockdown, and then the government said again, go to lockdown, we're having that risk of saying people let us die. With this message, we don't know. This today, with this message, it's linked to travel, it's linked to infertility, it's linked to everything. And the fear is, again, for the elderly community to come out, even if the lockdown is out, we're out of the lockdown and we are out of everything, then the disabled community and the elderly, there's a fear and there's a mentality for everyone now. We don't know who's disabled, who's not disabled, who is healthy, who's not healthy. The mentality is going of 100%. People will not come out.
Yeah, I
so
think
this message, we went to the NHS. Now look, they're going to go to the center and have a job. They've opened some centers. They say, go and have the job. It was not working, I'm telling you, to some extent. Now you go and phone your GP, and then you get quick appointment. That's what we have been discussing last night. Your GP is now giving you quick appointment than the centers the government invested on money, on information, and everything. So this thing, now the risk is if we come out of this lockdown, and then the government saying, oh, let's go down again to lockdown. That is now the risk for the professionals, starting with the NHS.
So I must be honest, I'm not sure I can give you enough information to answer your question because I'm not close enough to those decisions. And I can't say that there won't be another lockdown because, as you said, the virus is linked to people traveling and moving around. I think we're just going to have to see how it goes. Stick to the simple things, hands, face and space. And if you have questions or concerns about the vaccine, speak to the GP. That's the first point of call I would recommend, or someone else that you trust. But I know if we're being told one thing and the next day the message changes, it can be hard to get people's trust. But we're all just trying our best to try and make sure people feel safe to get the vaccine, but also safe to visit the GP if they have another health problem. And yeah, that will still be the NHS's main focus for the next few months.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Yusuf. It's really useful to hear from you. And
I would like to ask
in this
you.
Forum. Sorry, Hussein.
Yeah.
I wonder if can we have a quick question because we need to move on to the next speaker quite soon. Thank you, Hussein.
I would like to ask you the more information about the vaccination, because already I take vaccination at the January 6th, and also I waiting the second one. But I would like to ask you if they possible for the organization, they give the priority to take the vaccination, because there are a lot of people they don't take, and also they work in the front line. And also we did, the one we take that one, we did, the video, and we, we did contribution for the whole community, and we show him, how to eat it, and we don't have any reaction, and we feeling, happy, and also we feeling, the the scaring or anything else. A lot of people, they, when they see, they also they take. But I will ask you, if you give them more priority in the community, they can take, the vaccination. That's why I'm asking you if you give, priority for the community. Also, the community, they can refer out because they know the people who are vulnerable, who live in the area, especially Hanslow.
Oh, that's an interesting question, Sarah.
So I couldn't hear very well, so I may not have heard the question properly. I think Hussein, you were asking about how people could be prioritized for the vaccine. Is that right? And whether there could be volunteers.
Yeah.
So again, I'm sorry, but that's not something I can answer because I'm not at that level where the priorities are being decided. So at the moment, all of that information is coming from the top levels of the government, the JCVI, and I always forget what it stands for. I think it's Joint Committee on Vaccinations. So it's not something that I can influence, although part of my job and my colleagues' job is to gather the thoughts of people like yourself, Hussein, feed that back and say that we're hearing, for example, we're hearing that local volunteers are anxious. They don't feel that they can do the work they want to do because they're not vaccinated. So we try as hard as we can to kind of lobby, if you like, and feed that opinion back, but we're not at the level where we can influence the prioritization of the vaccine. I would just say watch this space, because the government will make those decisions soon. But please keep telling us what your volunteers are saying, because we will then feed that back, and it's like a snowball. It gets bigger and bigger across all of Northwest London, and we feed things back. And that's how people are trying to solve problems. So when we hear all of our volunteers say this, then it becomes a bit louder. I don't know if that has helped at all.
Yeah. Sarah, can I ask, is there an email that people can write to share their stories and concerns? Could you put that into the chat so that people can access it at a later point? Shanjit, is it a quick question? Because we're now at time to move on to the next speaker.
Yeah, it'll be a quick question. I just want to ask Sarah, you know, the food banks and all the organizations, they needed to be looked into as a priority, because they are trying to serve the communities, and they are also high risk because they are trying to serve the food and making the food packages. My husband is a part of them as well. So it's important to protect these people who are serving the community.
Thank you, Shanjit. That's another observation that perhaps could be forwarded to the email that Sarah is going to provide. I would like to, at this point, move on to the next speaker, if everyone is okay. If there are any other questions or queries, please either put it into the chat or use the email address that Sarah is going to provide. At this point, we want to welcome Lisa Graham from Swim Hounslow, who's going to talk on the impact of COVID in the BAME community and what she's doing and what can be done. Over to you, Lisa.
Thank you. Ian is going to help me with some slides, because I've sharing some slides. So we're going to have a little video clip from Sports Active UK first. Are you there, Ian?
Yeah, I've just got the video. I'm just going to share it in a minute.
Thank you. So this presentation is the importance of exercise and physical activity amongst the BAME community. And about inclusion. Oh, we can't hear. That's it.
All right, there's no volume.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm following the instructions on the...
Oh, okay.
So you can't hear it?
No, can't hear it, but we can see, and there is subtitles, so we can roll with it. There was just music in the background, but we'll get the gist.
Lisa, would you like to read out the subtitles?
Yep.
In society.
Oh, here we go.
Oh.
Obesity, problems, mental health.
It's basically breaking down barriers and encouraging everyone to take part, all abilities, doesn't matter what social economic background you come from, what ability you have, what ethnicity you have. It's all about the importance of taking part in some sort of physical activity for physical and mental health issues, and breaking down stigmas, making sport more inclusive and mainstream, so it can be enjoyed by every person.
Physical activity sector that can just make people feel differently.
So our mayor has launched an initiative to make London the most active city in Europe. So that's their drive. So if you just like to, Ian, if you would just like to show the Hounslow Insights with the demographic of physical activity. So the next slide is basically showing the differences of physical activity. It's the Hounslow Insight, if you've got it. Okay, we can show that later.
Yeah, did you want your slides?
It's okay, yeah, we'll do the slides, and then if at the end I can show you the Hounslow Insight graph, which shows the different levels of physical activity take up amongst different areas in Hounslow, because there is a very vast difference. So I'll just go ahead with the slides now. So physical and mental activity for everyone, especially the BAME community, is vitally important, so we become resilient and better equipped to deal with the daily life challenges and help protect us from long-term health conditions. Adults aged 18 to 64 should aim for a minimum of 30 minutes daily exercise at a moderate level. Children and young people aged 16 and 17 years should aim for a minimum of 60 minutes of daily exercise. And again, that's moderate exercise. Next slide, please. Some of the health risks that the BAME community are suffering from: type 2 diabetes, which is 6 times more likely in South Asian descent and 3 times more likely in African and Afro-Caribbean people. Cardiovascular disease is higher amongst the BAME groups, with heart attacks amongst South Asian groups higher at an earlier age, and African and Afro-Caribbeans are a higher risk of developing high blood pressure and having a stroke than any other ethnic groups. Obesity rates in Hounslow are higher than the national average, despite there being over 100 parks, numerous clubs, 5 leisure centres and 70 schools. However, a third of primary school children by the time they're in year 6 are overweight, and Hounslow have a higher rate of obesity by the time young people reach 16 years of age compared to the rest of London. Obesity-related hospital admissions in Hounslow for adults have more than doubled in the past 5 years in the borough, with 5,000 people being diagnosed with diabetes, which is strongly linked with being overweight also. African and Afro-Caribbean adults are the most likely out of all ethnic groups to be overweight or obese. Next slide, please. Low physical activity is also linked with poor mental health, such as depression, low self-esteem, isolation, and loneliness. 1 in 4 of us will experience a mental health issue in any given year. Anxiety and depression amongst South Asian women is 63.5% compared to 28.5% of other ethnic groups, well, their white counterparts. Psychotic disorders in Afro-Caribbean males are 3.1 compared to 0.2 of white males. A recent study conducted by Mind, which is a mental health charity, revealed that 14,000 adults suffered from poor mental health, which was related to inequalities such as housing, employment, finances, long-term health issues relating in a greater impact of low mental health within the BAME community. Next slide, please. Okay, evidence shows that lifestyle intervention programs can significantly improve health outcomes. Physical activity, especially swimming, helps combat poor physical and mental health. UK Active reported that swimming was the #1 physical activity enjoyed amongst people in this country. Swimming can be enjoyed in all walks of life, from baby to late adulthood. Physical activity in general helps to maintain a healthy weight helping to reduce the risk of obesity and type 2 diabetes. Swimming, for instance, is not load bearing on the joints, which enables people of all abilities to exercise safely. Improves mental well-being as exercise encourages you to make friends and socialize, give you new challenges, opportunities to learn something new. 30 minutes of exercise can release enough of our feel-good endorphins to last up to 12 hours. Next slide, please. Benefits of being part of a sport and physical activity club. Being part of a club helps to create a healthy, happy, more socially connected community. It improves emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-regulation, awareness of others, relationship management, teamwork to develop others to be the best version of themselves. Provide volunteer leadership roles to job opportunities within the industry or sport, the wider network, and improves learning and personal development. Fosters meaningful relationships, unity and connectiveness. Importantly, in addition to all of the above, clubs provide a safe place for our young people to mix with positive role models, supportive peers, protecting them from negative influences. Studies have shown that being part of an appropriately designed sports program can help reduce youth-related crime, antisocial behaviour, and reduce youth offending. It also helps with rehabilitation also. It is vital that service providers take into account the views of people from the BAME communities and ensure that they are represented in settings and designing health and wellbeing programs, also represented in peer leadership roles involving local people, community organisations and faith leaders who can represent views of local ethnic groups. Shall we form a collective to break barriers and give our BAME community a voice to improve our physical and mental health? So next slide, please. So this has gone a bit skewed. So this is a really empowering quote that I like. And it's basically, if, would you be able to, will I be able to see all of this, Ian, or shall I go to the bottom? Because I think I've got this. If people, it's basically saying, if people are leading the community, if people leading the community are from the community, then they will reflect the community. And I hopefully have a slide of the first African-American woman who won a gold medal at the Olympics in 2016. She also is the Olympic record holder. Her name is Simone Emanuel. And I just like some of her quotes. And like, this medal is not for me, it's for all the people who believe they couldn't do it. And also another one is surround yourself with dreamers and doers, the believers and the thinkers, and most of all, surround yourself by those who see greatness within you, even though you don't see it yourself. It actually makes me quite emotional because swimming is my thing. And many people, you know, I've been told, especially when I've been told in my borough, that children were just not competitive in my borough, and they were just not like other children in other boroughs. And I've proved everyone wrong, and children who, whatever background, and you know, we try to be really inclusive, and we've actually shown that we can achieve. They can learn to swim, they can develop their swimming. And I've even, within a very short space of time, had a child that within 1 year she got qualified for nationals, came fifth. I had another child the year after who is actually from the Muslim community. She's Moroccan, half Moroccan. She actually got qualified for nationals in 3 events. So, you know, we are really trying to strive and break down barriers and have a voice and advocate for all of those people that have not had a chance before. So if you can, Ian, if you got the Hounslow Insight at all, that brings up the graph of the disparities of physical uptake amongst different areas. I think I sent you this morning.
Oh, right. Oh, hang on.
It was a Hounslow Insight, which basically shows the levels of physical activity amongst Hounslow residents. And there's a very stark contrast between the uptake in Chiswick, and then as you go through to Brentford, Isleworth, Hounslow, Central Hounslow, and the Hamworth, Bedfont area. Here we go. So this shows. So this was a study with from Sports England about how many people actually take part in physical activity. This was physical activity in the last 28 days, for instance. And as you see the map, it's reasonably, it's 83% in the sort of the Chiswick area now. And then as we go down, it gets less and less and less. So we know Sports England and a new initiative, which is social prescribing, says that the biggest challenge in sport and physical activity participation is inequality. And we need to have a closer link between health and physical activity, especially in the light of COVID. We especially need to encourage people to be in better health, to combat health conditions and fight diseases. Physical activity will improve physical and mental health. It's vitally important to have diversity in leadership, to encourage more people from different ethnic backgrounds to take part in physical activity. This is why a base place approach empowers the community to take leadership. And then I'll say again, you know, if people leading the community are from the community, they will reflect the community. So it's all about breaking down the barriers and just showing that we can be active, we can be healthy. So that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Lisa. I think that shows quite a shocking picture of the levels of activity. I'm going to stop sharing that map, but I think everyone should really look at it closely. You know,
it's also been about, sorry, Drain, it's also been about the lack of opportunity, because I feel that over the years of being involved in swimming and encouraging children to be healthy and young people, they just haven't got the opportunities that they do have in the neighbouring boroughs, or also they do have in Chiswick. And this is the close link. It's not that people don't want to take part. Sometimes they need help, they need advice, they need to have their views aired, but also local clubs need to be given the opportunity. I have literally been banging my head against the brick wall for years, trying to encourage the council to you know, engage and support local clubs who are doing a really good job in trying to encourage our children to be healthy, support families, because clubs don't just provide physical activity. It's all about unity. It's a community in itself. You know, we break barriers. We are often the first port of call when a child is having issues with school or at home, or they're being abused, or they've had, you know, issues with being tried to be enticed with gangs and criminal activity. I have very tangible, without going into too much detail, very tangible evidence of how I've had to protect a child from county lines, the devastating impact it's had, where social services and the police were not able to engage with the family because the trust had broken down. Coaches and instructors, they build a relationship over a very long period of time. We get to know the children, you know, in a much more in-depth and meaningful way. I spend more time with those children than I do my own family. I'm with them for like swimming competitions. You're with them for 12 hours a day, Saturday and Sunday. You know, how the council really have to start protecting, you know, children, and that means protecting our resources, and that means supporting our clubs. It doesn't mean putting a wall around our borough so no one else can use our facilities. It's about protecting our resources and facilities and empowering and helping our clubs like any other local authority does.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm aware of the time marching on, and we have got a couple of other speakers to speak. Vincent, you wanted to ask a question. Could you make it quite short?
Oh, I can wait. I can wait till any other business.
Okay, that's brilliant. Rahila?
Hi.
You had a question.
Yeah. I will just try to make it short. Thank you so much for organizing this. I have a question, Lisa, regarding, because we work with BAME community, BAME women who are mostly from Pakistan and Bangladeshi communities. So the problem we have faced that there is most of the women, they have cultural preferences of certain kind of dresses. So it is not possible for them to, sorry for background noise. It is not possible for them to go for swimming or any other kind of, because they have different cultural preferences, particularly wearing hijab. So what can be done so that that barrier can be broken so that they can participate and they don't feel alienated for doing these kind of activities? Thank you.
Yes, so I have experience, because I teach swimming in the borough as well to school children, primary school children, and we do have children coming in with their religious needs, and there is a lycra. It's made of like lycra material, and it's completely covered from your head to your toe. It's only your face and your hands and your feet. So we can break down those barriers for that. The barrier which I have is actually getting the facility in order to set these initiatives and programs up. I can support you and I can set these programs up really well. I tried, and I'm afraid I failed. I tried to get funding to set up swimming lessons for the BAME women. I wanted two groups. I wanted groups from age 12 to but that would be anyone who's actually gone through maturation and needs to start covering actually, but from like 12 to 16, and then in 1 hour session, I was going to divide the pool up into different abilities. I've got a team of female coaches and instructors. I have someone that can actually lifeguard the session. And then the second hour, it would be for women. And we would encourage all women with abilities, different disabilities, because I'm experienced of teaching anyone to swim. We could also have other females in the pool assisting. I even factored in the COVID measures, safety measures within the pool, but unfortunately I was turned down for funding. But it's something that I'm going to keep going with because it's very and vitally important. We do understand, I've got swimmers myself that when they're on their monthly cycle, they don't come swimming. I understand that. We also do talks on other alternatives that you can use. And yeah, that's all I can say. I've taught and coached swimming. Swimming has been my entire life. I am absolutely obsessed by it because I know the link and the correlation. And I'm really into the whole social prescribing. I've also been accepted on the social prescribing network for the northwest of London. And because there is a close correlation of how swimming can impact a number of different like disabilities, from mental health to physical activity. So I am really experienced of being able to engage with anyone and break down the barriers that they have. I've had children who have been in a wheelchair that I've integrated into my swimming club. I've coached a young man who had Down syndrome. I've got a young man who I had in the program, and he's now a lifeguard because I got him through his para classification and he's got his disability badge. So I'm really experienced of teaching. I've got over 20 years of experience of teaching and coaching. I know my area. I've lived here for 42 years. I know exactly what's needed. I need a voice. I need to be given the opportunity to reach out to everyone that needs it now.
Thank you, Lisa. I think at this point, this is going to probably generate a whole round of new questions. I wonder, Lisa, if people could be encouraged to contact you, because I think this could start a whole new discussion. And
yeah, I can reach out to anyone willing to, for Zoom and
lovely.
Work as a collective.
Okay. Sorry, Lisa, can we move on to the next presenter? Parul, could you put your question into the chat and we can come back to it at the end if necessary? I'm really sorry about this, but we're becoming aware of time as well. And the next speaker is Dr. Maddie Gupta-Wright. And she's going to talk about integrated impact assessment on COVID inequalities. And then directly after Dr. Maddie, what we'll do is we'll open up to general discussion. And if you can hold on to those questions that you want to ask, or either put them in the chat or speak about them during the open discussion at the end, if that's okay. Sorry to bring that to a close like that, Lisa. I think we could talk forever about this. It's such an incredibly important discussion. Dr. Maddie.
Thank you, Jane, and everyone. And I'm known as Maddie. And I'm sorry, Lisa, to also bring that discussion to a close, because it actually speaks very close to my heart, but also relates to what I'm hopefully going to talk to you about today. And I'd also like to be in touch with you to just learn a little bit more about Hounslow Ealing and where the kind of, opportunities lie. So that's all fantastic. Just to say, I mean, I'm new to this group. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm a consultant in public health in Ealing Council. I only started in September in my permanent role, so I'm also still getting to know a lot of the community organisations in Ealing and North West London, and hoping to obviously work a lot more with you all in the future. I was really given some time today, and I'm going to keep it quite short, to talk about a piece of work that's going on in the council, led by the public health team, which has got this kind of, technical, horrible title of an integrated impact assessment. But essentially, it's about COVID-related inequalities, and also bridging that gap between talking about COVID-related inequalities into wider health and social economic inequalities that we know have existed for a long time and have actually been exacerbated by the pandemic. So internally, this piece of work has been known by the title Integrated Impact Assessment. And some of you may have heard my colleague Wendy Meredith speak at the Health and Wellbeing Board public meetings, and also at various one-to-one conversations with community groups, and also with the council's area task groups as part of community engagement processes that have been ongoing during the pandemic. Wendy Meredith was our interim Director of Public Health, and she led this work continuing after she stepped down as DPH. But she's now moved on, and myself and my colleague Ellen will be leading this work. So I just have one slide to share, and I'm hoping it's going to work. I also don't use Zoom very much, so just bear with me a little bit. Sorry, see whether I can get to the right piece. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. Thank you for confirming that. Okay, so really the purpose of this piece of work has been to better understand a wide range of connected impacts from COVID. So those that might have been as a direct result of the illness, or of having relatives who've been ill, or because perhaps of the government's restrictions in place. So that might include the impact of having to stay at home, to self-isolate, increased social isolation through that whole process, perhaps limited work or risk or reality of unemployment, to be affected in more broad terms in terms of financial security, and of course overall well-being, because it's been a very stressful time. And the list of these impacts could go on. So why did we want to do an integrated impact assessment? So integrated really to speak to that idea that these impacts they do not occur in isolation of each other. They don't, if you talk about them in those terms as separate impacts, that doesn't really represent true human experience. And for several people, multiple impacts of the pandemic have connected and also compounded each other to make life very difficult indeed. Specifically, we wanted to understand how these impacts have threatened residents of Ealing Borough's health and well-being, their capacity to thrive, and in particular to understand that these haven't been experienced to the same degree across the population, and that there are, of course, individuals, groups and communities experiencing the most extreme health and social and economic impacts of the pandemic in Ealing. And sadly, the groups that we are talking about, it's no coincidence, i.e. these same inequalities, these same disparities and differences have been present for many other health problems and also the social and economic context of those people's lives for many years. But the pandemic has made it very much worse, and also potentially affected new groups of people, of course. So most importantly, this is a process, and it's a chance to link with all the work that you and your organisations and others have been doing to understand the COVID impact, to work together and to move forward into a recovery phase, which finds joint and shared solutions for some of these very complex problems, and to ensure this is an opportunity to make health and well-being, to improve, health and well-being for everyone in the borough, but in proportion to need. So particularly looking at that inequity, that unequal distribution of impact across society, and the injustice that actually speaks to. So this piece of work is a dynamic process. There's much less focus on the output. There's going to be very minimal of the kind of glossy report that sits on a shelf. We're really focusing on it as a process to make recommendations for short, medium, long-term actions that affect council strategy and policy, and also our partners, and also where we might have leverage to lobby central government changes. The process so far has gathered lots of learning from written documents that both local organisations have produced that have been available regionally and nationally, and some of the wider literature. Some of you and your organisations have produced such kind of reports and presentations, and you may have already spoken to my colleague Wendy, but for others, I would really love to hear from you and look at ways that we can reflect the findings of any work you've also done on COVID impact, and particularly around inequality. The insights of this, the council's more broad work on kind of community engagement, the area task groups they've been running, and the findings from the voluntary sector consortium hosted by each counselling have also been fed back into this whole process. And there's also been some individual conversations happening, and I'm hoping to really strengthen that area and have individual conversations with many of you and also some of your members and wider organisations in the community. Perhaps along the lines of identifying some sort of community leaders, but it doesn't have to be the necessary traditional, in the traditional sense, anyone who's willing to speak to me to share a story really of their impact, so we can understand a little bit more about this whole lived experience of the COVID impact, and most importantly, start to identify some solutions. So all of this work so far has helped us to broaden our understanding of the lived experience on residents, but again, would welcome any contact from you or your members to learn more. And I did put my email in the chat, but it's also at the bottom of this slide that will be circulated. Apologies, I didn't get that to the organisers in advance. The other bit of the process that I've got on another bullet point here is about the quantitative data that we've been analysing from the first wave, and that will be repeated for the second wave, which has highlighted for Ealing some of the same trends, sadly, that are very much highlighted in the Public Health England Disparities Report and many other helpful policy reports and scientific literature over the course of the pandemic. So these are that there have been disproportionate effects on those who are poorer, those who are older, particularly around the direct impact of COVID, of course, to a degree more on men, although there's an inequality and inequity discussion to be had around men and women and their access to testing, and perhaps that we're getting slightly skewed data because of that. And also shown that wards with higher proportions of Black and Asian and minority ethnic residents have also had higher infection rates. Now, locally, the data is very difficult to unpick to be able to say with absolute confidence that this is a profound problem in and of itself for our communities, but we know that obviously there has been a disproportionate effect on these people, and for all of us working in the community, we've been very aware of the impact that the Black and Asian and minority ethnic residents have experienced related to many other structural inequalities. And important there to mention that the Council's Race Equality Commission findings are also going to be fed back into this process of this health impact assessment related to this known inequity and injustice experienced by people of Black, Asian and minority ethnicity. You may or may not have seen that the Association of Directors of Public Health, which is a professional body in which my boss, our Director of Public Health, belongs, released a statement recently to express that racism is, of course, a public health issue, and that there should be work across the system to tackle structural racism in the broad health and social and welfare system, and it must be a priority. And this framing will be a strong part of the recommendations from this work, given that I'm focusing very much on the inequalities from COVID and beyond. So the next steps, just to give you an update on where we are now, the next area task group meetings that are part of the Council's community engagement efforts during COVID are due in March, starting just in a couple of weeks. These are currently being planned as we speak, and we would very much like to focus these discussions on what next and solution-focused discussions with members of the community, hearing ideas for collective action to address some of this inequality, and also to build this recovery plan which can support people to move forward positively from the pandemic. And colleagues, I've seen at least Nikita on the call today. I'm not sure if Laura Bear managed to join us as well, but colleagues on the call from London School of Economics, Laura and Nikita are kindly helping us to have multiple conversations with different groups and organisations in the borough, so that we can learn the most from everyone and ensure that the March discussions move us to discuss the ideas and recommendations that can address inequality. So moving away from just gathering impact understanding to actually what are we all going to do about it. And those will form the basis of the recommendations I mentioned, which are evolving and hope to have influence on council strategy and policy and our partners, and also lobbying efforts. So I will leave it there. Lots to take in, I appreciate, and I would love to keep coming to some of these meetings when I'm able, and present some further information as this process evolves. My email address on the bottom of this slide and in the chat. Please do get in contact if any of this strikes a chord, or if you want to provide any comments or any thoughts on gaps, things we're missing, what we're not doing and how we could do it better. Would really welcome that. And as I said, hoping to stay in contact with you by attending some of these Friday meetings when I'm able. The other email address on the bottom, just so you're aware, is for any general COVID public health inquiries you might have, and please do email our team. Happy to take any questions, of course, now, but that's it from me today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maddie. We'll take a couple of questions and then we'll go into an open chat as well. That was really useful, and I'm sure that we'd welcome you back if you want to come along and just enjoy the chat and catch up with everyone at future meetings as well. Vincent has already raised a question. He said, Maddie, great presentation. Mental health is something which has taken a massive toll, however seldom spoken. The digital divide means all the great adverts and marketing material is, oh, I can't see the end of that. Vincent, I can't see.
Sorry. Hi, Maddie. Hi, Jane. I think this is a great session. Thanks for sharing the material. The point I was trying to make was that mental health continues to be a challenge, within our community in Southwest London, specifically BAME community. There's a digital divide as well, meaning all those great promotion materials that we see on LinkedIn, on other Facebook or social media, it's not really reaching to the communities because there's a big digital divide, which is separate, which is another challenge itself. Jane is trying to help the communities or third sector teams like us to go and connect with the community. So I've noticed that this is only for Ealing, so I'm not sure if this will be for Hounslow at some point. And although this is all great, do we get some benefit out of it? I.e., do we get a chance to connect and share our data, or is it only for Ealing specific? But great work, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent. Really helpful to hear those comments. Do get in touch with me and we can think about how we can sort of work with other boroughs. And when we are very much working at the North West London integrated care system level in the NHS, and Sarah State, who presented earlier, and I are in touch on sort of some of the inequalities work already. And I'm hoping, as I'm relatively new to my role, but very passionate about working in this area, that this isn't, that this is an ongoing kind of piece of work where we can kind of work out how we collaborate more across councils and within our NHS partners, and of course the voluntary sector, and get rid of a little bit of that council boundary that is often a little bit difficult for some of this work, because it of course doesn't speak to the way we live. We don't live necessarily in just thinking about council boundaries. So would welcome Vincent, if you want to get in touch, or if you've got any ideas of how we could talk with counterparts in the council, other councils, and I'll also look into that with my colleagues in public health a little bit more. On your point about digital exclusion, absolutely, or digital inclusion, I should say, as we want to move towards this sort of framing of it as what we're going to do about it, and how do we sort of look at these things in terms of action. Totally appreciate that, and there are bits of work going on already with sort of shorter term recommendations that have already been made from this work, but I think the whole area of how we address or how we improve digital inclusion in the future to address health and social and economic inequalities is one of the very important recommendations that could come out of this work. And it'll be for me to work out what's already going on, because I know there are some things already going on, and to piece together a little bit more of a jigsaw puzzle where we can work together to improve that across multiple systems. So not just within healthcare systems, but also actually within council, wider welfare systems, etc. Mental health, just to touch on very briefly, we had a steering group for this work within the council, which was made up of colleagues from across different departments and directors, so housing, children and young people, etc. And that steering group came up initially with 4 themes, one of which was mental health, obviously recognising the huge impact that the pandemic has had on people's mental health, and work that needs to be done on that. So that is going to be another major theme of the assessment going forward, but yet how we're going to really look at that problem and how we're going to sort of tackle that across partners is to be defined. And so again, any ideas or any connections that you want to make, or pieces of work you want to flag to me that we might not have seen yet, I'd be very grateful. Yeah.
Thank you, Maddie. Sarah had a question, and then we want to open it up to just general discussion. Sarah, are you there? Can you turn your mute off? Yeah.
My question was for general discussion. It was actually for Lisa.
Oh, okay, lovely. Okay, so if at this point, everyone, you've got Maddie's contact details, we'll go to general discussion. I just want to do a quick little shout out. Yes.
Jane, sorry to interrupt. Could I just, sorry, I didn't give my colleague Nikita a chance to speak. Could I just quickly just see if she wanted to add anything or say anything to that? Or
okay, Nikita.
Sorry.
Nothing particular to add, but thank you so much for having me here. It's really wonderful to be in this lovely community space. And if you do want to share any stories, Laura and I will be speaking to a range of people across the Ealing and Hounslow communities. So if you would like to speak, then my email is in the chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nikita.
Thanks, Jane.
Okay, no problem. So everybody, let's have a few minutes to catch up, and just a quick shout out for Ealing. Ealing Rises. I'm not quite sure. We've had this Citizen UK Ealing Rises Up call for citizen researchers, research and develop an exhibition. So there's a little contact here. I'm not 100% sure what this is all about, but I'll leave that up for everyone to have a look at. I think it's a gathering of stories. What a wonderful activity. So if anyone has a story to share or contribute, please contact Citizen UK. And we'll share that with the pack of slides as well. All right. Anybody got a comment? I've got hands up. Omar, is that a hand up from previously? Vincent, would you like to start?
Yeah, sorry.
That was
Jane?
from previous one.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jane, my pending question was from Lisa's session. So Lisa, hi, that was a great session. Thank you for sharing. There are two things which, I know you and we have spoken previously, but I couldn't get it out of the presentation. And I think it will be great for all of us to know more about you, Lisa, who is Lisa, so, some of the things which you have mentioned to me, I think it's so key. I think it will be nice for everyone to know, why the passion, you're so passionate about the sport. It's really important for everyone to know, so please, if you can share a bit about your sporting background, that's
Okay.
really key.
That's really important. Lisa, before you do that, could we just give over to Sarah, because she also had a question, and perhaps you can answer both at the same time.
Hi, Lisa. I thought your session was great, and I really like what you're doing with swimming. I'm from a new charity called Active Women and Girls Foundation, and our idea is actually to get more and more women being active, and swimming seems to be a great way of doing that. Can I just ask if your classes are free of charge, and if there's any cost involved in women taking part? Because I know one of the barriers to people taking part generally in some activities is actually the cost of taking part, and that's what I'm trying to get rid of actually in the work that we're doing. So I'm just wondering if the work that you do is actually free of charge, and if it could be potentially in the future if funding were available.
Yes, so sure. So due to COVID and because of leisure centres not being closed, I've done a lot of research and seen the whole devastation and impact. And actually this has been, COVID has just added to a storm. This has been brewing for years and years and years, and I've seen it before my very eyes. And this now has been, the bomb COVID has. So basically speaking, London Borough of Hounslow's drive and focus is to be an inclusive club, regardless of your social, economic background or ethnicity, to take part in swimming, learn to swim, develop swimming, and even if they want to, a competitive swimmer. I am trying to get funding and fundraise for that reason. The last funding bid I've applied for is to tackle youth isolation, which is linked with mental health. So that, hopefully if I get that, I'll be able to tackle some teenagers and giving them free funding. There's also then like an exit route where they can go into other local swimming clubs. So we don't just pick them up and then throw them away. I want to try to, embrace them and encourage them to stay with us. So my main focus is to make it free, because that is one of the boundaries. You can't, you cannot pay for something when you've got to put food on the table.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know, bringing up 3 children as a single parent, I know I get the whole thing. I get the whole empty cupboards. I get the whole empty fridge. I get the whole, well, I've got to, do the heating. And so I've got this amount of money. I've seen it all. I've been there, done that, and worn the t-shirt. So
yes,
that is what I want to do. So if we can do collaboratively, do fundraising to add strength to our to the project, that would be fantastic.
I'm a professional fundraiser as well, so I'd be happy to.
I'm learning. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I think the brilliant connections happening. But is everyone okay for Lisa just to give us a 5-minute update about her personal background and why she's doing this? Because I think Vincent is correct. It's actually really interesting to know why you're doing this, Lisa, and what it is about you that brings you into swimming.
Okay, so I learned to swim. My parents dragged us all off of swimming because we were just like a regular family in a council estate. That my mum knew someone whose granddaughter died in a rock pool at the seaside. You go down and sometimes they're deeper than, and the child actually went in to a small rock pool and drowned. So we were all carted off to swimming lessons. My brother had private swimming lessons because he was deaf, the same swimming club. I happened to be like good at it and be a fish. It did take me a while to learn, but once I learned, I completely just shot off and rolled with it. I really enjoyed it. That in my times of teenager life, when I had family issues and my parents broke up, that was my salvation, to lose myself into my training and just swim. and for my mental health. I don't know if I would be the same person. I would not be the same person I was today if I hadn't have had my swimming. So I know the impact of how it can support, and having a team and having people having like sharing goals, and all those connectiveness. It's very important. I come from the East End. I live in the borough for 42 years. I've seen the lack of opportunities for young people in this borough, particularly with sport, compared to I was a competitor actually in a neighbouring club, Ealing, but it's not changed from the 80s to now. We are still frowned upon as like the poor counterparts compared to our neighbouring boroughs and other parts of London. We've literally been a forgotten borough. They don't regard sport as very important. Sport is linked with physical activity and all the other wonderful things being in part of a community club gives you. This is what I'm trying to highlight and address in my own club. The reason why I'm so passionate about this, as I said, parents come to me. I'm the first port of call when a mum is, going through a divorce, or we've got a large BAME community. Pre-COVID, 71% of our community members were from the BAME community that we teach, mainly from the Learn to Swim group. Disabilities, and yes, I've had a family devastated by the whole county lines, and the only person they trusted was myself.
Lisa, sorry, I've got to interrupt you. I just before we finish, I think, could I just, you're very passionate about it, but could I just mention to everyone that actually you have achieved amazing things as a swimmer yourself. You have swum nationally. You have been a swimmer for Great Britain. And actually, you've got a long history as a competitor yourself, which I think is interesting for people. Sorry, I have to actually close it down because we're at 12 o'clock. Ian, I don't know what we do. Everyone, there is perhaps some need to talk a bit more, or do we just close it now?
No, I mean, we can carry on a bit if people are desperate to carry on.
Okay, so shall we open it up to more discussion? Just for a few more minutes. We've got a little bit more time on this session.
I'd like to add to this, if anyone would like to leave some comments, your feedback through our SurveyMonkey list would really, really help. We'd be able to, pass this on to our funders who are promoting this session and, bring more sessions to you. So don't forget to add your comments, your experiences, or anything that you would like from the session onto our survey. Thank you.
Thank you, Nyoika. Okay, Amrit.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Amrit Gator. I'm a martial arts instructor. Been teaching karate since I was the age of 18. My father was my instructor, and we've been doing a lot of charity classes for the open community around West London and the UK. And Ian's kindly invited me in on the meeting, so I'm new to all of this. Yeah, I just wanted to introduce myself and say that we'd like to kind of get more involved with the community and see how we can be more of service, because mostly all of our classes since we started, which was in 1978, my father started the classes. We've been kind of self-funding a lot of the classes ourselves. So we've got around about 20 instructors and around about 2,000 students around the UK. And it's all been mostly all instructors just dipping into our own pockets and buying mats, buying martial art equipment, providing the rent money. And it's all been mostly, whatever the child can afford, £3, £2, £1, they kind of give that to the class. And we provide a very nice working environment for all the kids to kind of learn and group together, develop confidence and develop these key skills. that they can move forward in life and have that confidence and move towards a greater kind of purpose. So Ian's kindly brought me in on this this meeting to kind of understand more about how we can tap into the services that the council can offer to help, because I wasn't aware that the council can offer support for organizations such as ourselves. So he's kind of instructed me to kind of make a organization account and kind of move forward. So just wanted to put my hand up and just kind of let you know what it is we'd be looking to kind of do moving forwards.
It sounds like a lot of ideas and opportunities are happening, and there's possibilities for some network working together here. I think everyone has got each other's email addresses. Perhaps you can contact each other, come back to Ian as well about any suggestions about a way forward, perhaps something to work together on something.
Sure.
Lisa.
Yeah.
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 Anybody else got something to say? Parul, do you want to share your observation after Lisa's talk?
Parul has had to move to another meeting, so I think she's left the meeting, but she did put in a comment saying that she enjoyed Lisa's session and thank you very much.
She also spoke about, the 1 in 4 Black men will get prostate cancer. So please have your prostate check regularly. So yeah.
And prostate cancer, of course, is something that exercise really does help prevent. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone. It's been really good to have you all here and a very good session. We'll speak to you again next week, I hope. Come along. Let's share the news about this group. Lots going on. If there is anything in particular that you would like to hear about, or if you have something that you would like to share, please contact Noika, and we'll be coordinating future chats as well, because we've got this group going for 6 months. So there'll be opportunity for everyone to have something to say and to have their say. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Jane.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, Lisa.
Thank
Well
you.
done.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Yusuf,
Amazing, everyone.
sorry, Yusuf, I gave you the information from Parasport about the exercise